Thank you, Asha. So I have a difficult task. It's not the end, but the last day of the meeting to get you excited. So I will try. This is my conflict of interest. So I just would like to talk about what will happen in the next year or the next 2 years that for me are very exciting as far as new clinical trials. And I have separated all these trials and studies in 3 different parts. First, what about improving care? Then I will talk about cure. Are there some ongoing studies looking at cure? And the topic in which I am mostly interested now, that I will briefly allude to, is prediction and prevention. So what about care? This was a situation in 2012. It was quite easy because basically we had one biologics, and of course combo therapy was doing better than monotherapy, and we got this beautiful endoscopic healing. The situation in 2019, and this has been discussed at length during this meeting, is that we have now different biologics, we have small molecules coming, and of course the problem is about positioning. And this is the biggest question that we have to face. So far we are using what is on this slide. We are using basically our clinical nose, like looking at severity, comorbidity, practicality, the price, and so on. So it's not really evidence-based. So this is, to me, one of the most exciting studies that will be presented, I guess, next year, because this is the first head-to-head study ever in IBD comparing 2 biologics. This is a VARSITY study where patients with ulcerative colitis will be randomized to receive either vedolizumab IV compared to adalimumab sub-Q. And this is a huge study, more than 700 patients, and the primary endpoint will be the proportion of patients achieving clinical remission at week 52. So we really look forward to this study. I hope it will be presented next year, maybe at ECHO or at DDW or both, because this basically is the first study in IBD. So this is a slide which looks a little bit disappointing. What I have done here is basically to plot all the data, all the results of pivotal Crohn's disease trial in anti-TNF naive population using what I call anchoring. What do I mean? The point is that all those trials, remember, you include patients in the induction arm, and then you randomize the responders. And you look at remission in responders, but you are not really looking at remission from the overall population that was included. And if you do this exercise, actually it's kind of a little bit sobering, because this is what you can obtain with our best drugs, the biologics. So my point is that there is huge need for optimization. And there are many studies that are looking at optimization. I believe that those studies are targeting one of these 3 pillars of IBD care. I strongly believe that if you are using the current drugs that we have, respecting these 3 pillars, which are early intervention, the concept of treat to target, and the concept of tight control and involving the patients. With the drugs that we have today, we can basically control more than 70% of patients. So the tight control study that we published last year is a CALM study showing basically that you escalate biologics. In that case, it was adalimumab, based on biomarkers, which were calprotectin and CRP, instead of just clinical management, at 1 year, you have much more patients in clinical and endoscopic remission. This is a primary endpoint, which was endoscopic remission. The question that one may ask, does that matter? Nobody has ever shown that being in deep remission at 1 year is doing something in the long term. And this is a question that will be answered this year because we have been able to follow all those patients for more than 4 years, and we will present some data next year as well, showing the impact of tight control and deep remission at 1 year on the progression of Crohn's disease. This basically is the first disease modification trial in Crohn's disease that will be ever presented, even though it's not prospective for the last part. There is this very important study as well, which is looking, it's a kind of treat-to-target study. It's a REACT-2 study. Basically, the patients, not the patient, but the practices, it's a cluster randomized trial. So meaning that some gastroenterologists in some practices are just using their step-up approach based on clinical symptoms, while some in other practices are using an enhanced care algorithm where they are stepping up based on clinical data and endoscopy. Meaning that if the patient is not in endoscopic healing, then he is escalated. And the primary endpoint, again, is the risk of complications. So it's a very important study as well because it will answer the question if we are targeting endoscopy instead of clinical management, is this associated with better long-term outcomes? So this is a way of optimizing. Something else that I strongly believe in as well is the possibility of combining biologics. This is a slide from a review that we published earlier this year, showing the different combination of biologics that has been used in different immune-mediated diseases. So you have, for instance, a rheumatologic condition in orange, you have a skin disease in blue, and as you can see, our colleagues, rheumatologists, have already explored this combination of biologics a lot. For instance, using a combination of anti-TNF with abatacept, combination with rituximab, and so on and so forth. So far, we have no prospective study combining biologics in IBD. So the first study that we have started last year, 2 years ago, it's called the Explorer study. And I hope we will get the result next year as well. This is a phase 4 open-label multi-center study. It's not a control study, it's just a pilot proof of concept study where we are combining vedolizumab IV, adalimumab sub-Q, and oral methotrexate over 26 weeks. And then after 26 weeks, we are maintaining the patients on vedolizumab monotherapy plus methotrexate for a certain time. So, of course, it's not randomized, but I think it will give us a good idea about the safety first and about the efficacy as well. For instance, if we observe something like amazing as far as endoscopic healing or deep remission, meaning clinical remission and endoscopic remission, this will be the first data showing that in early Crohn's disease, these are all early Crohn's disease, naive of all biologics, this strategy may be effective and improve our results. The other way to improve our results is, of course, to optimize the dosing. And as you know, there are a lot of arguments suggesting that the sub-Q anti-TNF may be underdosed. This is why AbbVie has started these two serine study, which is called serine UC and serine Crohn's disease, where two induction regimens are compared. The classical one, which is 160 and 80, and a high induction regimen, which is 160 every week during 4 weeks, a kind of loading dose. And we will see if this loading dose is more effective than the classical induction. The second interest of this study is that in the maintenance arm, we will compare adalimumab every other week, weekly, and adalimumab based on drug levels. So it will also explore the concept of proactive drug monitoring that we have discussed a lot during this meeting. Proactive monitoring so far is very discussed. And as you know, the two prospective studies which have looked at proactive monitoring, meaning treating to target levels instead of treating to symptoms, have been negative. The TAXID study and the TAILORx study. We believe that actually the monitoring should be done very early because the induction dose is the most important. And this is the optimized trial that has been designed by Marla Dubinsky and Diane Mould, where patients with moderate to severely active Crohn's disease will be started on infliximab. On the left side, you have the classical induction regimen, and then the patient will be escalated based on clinical relapse and monitoring as well of the drug levels. But on the right-hand side, this is the most interesting arm because the optimization will be done upfront based on a PK model that has been designed by Diane Mould and using a maximum infliximab dosing of 10 milligrams per kg to avoid any infliximab trough level lower than 25 at week 2 or lower than 17 at week 6. Because based on Diane Mould algorithm, we believe that the most important is the loading dose, is the early drug monitoring. And then the optimization following week 14 will be also based on this PK model. So this will be the first proactive therapeutic drug monitoring study, but doing drug monitoring from induction and not from week 14, which was done in TAILORx and which was a failure. This is something that we are all looking at, is a search for endotypes. What do I mean by endotypes? We believe that IBD are very heterogeneous, and an endotype is a subtype defined by distinct functional or pathobiological mechanisms. It's more than a phenotype. It's a characteristic or trait of a disease, such as morphology, biochemical or physiological properties or behavior, without implication of mechanism. So, together with genetic and environmental factors, the endotypes can explain the clinical presentation, epidemiology, and the difference in the response to treatments. So, identifying endotype in IBD could help to stratify IBD towards precision medicine. And the quest for endotype is lagging as compared to cancer. This is what they are already doing in cancer, as you know. The cancer management in kids and adult patients is already enriched with personalization. Identification of specific mutation or mutation-specific therapies through DNA sequencing, functional imaging, and integrative omic measurements. In IBD, basically, we have nothing. So, we have nothing so far proven. We have a lot of hypotheses. These are all markers, different markers that have been proposed to define endotypes in IBD patients. Genetic markers, clinical markers, transcriptomic markers, microbiome or proteomic. But so far, it's hypothesis-driven. It's only retrospective associations, very often clinically not applicable and not validated. So this is a very interesting study that has started in UK based on this paper published by Lee in 2011 in JCI. Basically, using blood qPCR, they were able to identify transcriptome of CD8 T cells that were able to predict response or non-response to anti-TNF. And as you can see, you have two different types, the IBD1 or the IBD2 transcriptome type. And when you look at the response to anti-TNF, on the bottom, it's clearly different. So what our colleagues from UK are now doing is this very interesting study, which is called the PROFILE study, predicting outcome for Crohn's disease using a molecular biomarker. These are newly diagnosed Crohn's disease, active disease, no immunosuppressive treatment, and they are randomized based on their expression profile of their CD8. And then there are two different arms, and they are randomized in both arms to step up or top down. And the primary endpoint will be the sustained steroid and surgery-free remission at 1 year. So this is the first prospective study that will try to personalize the IBD care and the use of infliximab in patients with Crohn's disease. We have heard a lot also during this meeting about FMT, and as you know, there are several studies now published in UC. This is maybe the biggest study, which is a study from Australia, the FOCUS study, which was strongly positive, using very intensive fecal transplants, one fecal transplant through colonoscopy, then enema every day during 8 weeks, 5 days a week. And then this is a primary endpoint, which was clinical remission and endoscopic response, which was strongly positive. So the point is that how can we optimize this FMT? And the idea is that can we identify bacteria within the stools which are associated with remission? And this is what we have started to do in collaboration with our Australian colleagues. So we got all the stools from donors and receivers in order to look in patients who were cured or not cured, what strains were enriched in cured patients and what strains were enriched in patients not cured. And these are the data which have just been published 2 days ago in gastroenterology, showing that there are some specific strains which are associated with good results. For instance, E. bacterial hallei is associated with improved efficacy of FMT, while there are some bugs like Fusobacteria and Suturella, especially when present in receivers, which are strong predictors of non-response to FMT. So the point is that using this data, we are now trying to design personalized FMT to refine this FMT so that we can just use the good bugs and identify the good receivers as well. There are now some other tracks which are used to treat patients with IBD, and for instance, diet has been very poorly explored, and maybe we could optimize our therapeutic strategies using these diets. And we are waiting a lot from this DINE study, which is led by Jim Lewis, comparing the carbohydrate-free diet with the Mediterranean diet. I don't know when the results will be available, maybe next year, the preliminary data. Something else which is coming in US, but I'm very sad to say this is like 3 years after Europe, is this new approach of stem cell therapy. I've been involved in the development in this fat stem cell therapy to treat the fistula, the perianal fistula in Crohn's disease, and I can tell you this is working very, very well. So basically what you do with this stem cell, the surgeon is closing the internal opening of the fistula, then is doing a curettage of the fistula tract and injecting the fat stem cell all along the fistula tract. And look at the data, it's amazing. These are short-term data and long-term data at 1 year. More than 50% of patients have their fistula closed. This basically is the first breakthrough regarding the treatment of fistula since infliximab. So what about cure? Cure means no disease and no treatment. And there are trials exploring this concept of cure. They are done in Europe. This is the first study that we are running in Europe, which is called the SPARE study, which basically it's a kind of a prolongation of the STORY study. So what we are doing is to randomize patients who are in remission on anti-TNF and immunosuppressors, most often thiopurines. But remember, STORY was not randomized. Here we are randomizing patients to continuing combo, stopping the anti-TNF or stopping the anti-metabolites. And we are exploring also another concept, which is a concept of recycling, meaning that if a patient stops anti-TNF and relapse, we will try to recycle. So we have currently enrolled 200 patients in this study, and I hope the data will be ready for next year, maybe end of next year. The concept of stopping is also explored in this very ambitious study from the JETED, which is called the CURE study. The point is that, as a rheumatologist, we believe that maybe if we hit the disease very strongly from the beginning, not after 4 or 5 years, from the beginning, then maybe we will be able to stop. So this is a prospective study in naive patients, early patients with Crohn's disease, who are starting on adalimumab monotherapy. And as you can see, along the time, they are looking at different parameters, such as clinical parameters, MRI, and coloscopy. And at different points in time, if the patients are in deep remission, then the adalimumab is stopped. And of course, there is possibility to rescue if the patient is failing. So this is the first study that will explore this concept of curing, meaning stopping the Humira in that case, in patients who have been started very early with the most intensive, with an intensive treatment with the biologics. And the primary objective is sustain deep remission at 2 years in patients who stopped adalimumab at 1 year. Finally, the last concept in which I am most excited about is the concept of prediction and prevention. This is explored a lot by our colleagues in endocrinology and rheumatology. For instance, this is a slide looking at type 1 diabetes, and as you know, you can think about prevent onset of autoimmunity, stop autoimmune attack, preserve, replace the beta cells, improve glucose control, restore beta cell function, and then basically stop the progression and the onset of the disease. And this is the real cure. The point is that if you want to do this, you have to make the diagnosis or to detect the patients before the first clinical symptom. Otherwise, I believe it's too late. So IBD, like diabetes, like rheumatoid arthritis, have a preclinical phase. We know that a long time before the first symptom, there are changes in the mucosa of patients, especially with Crohn's disease. There are immunological changes, there are changes in their microbiome. So the goal is to detect these very early changes so that we can predict the onset of IBD and maybe in the future prevent. So this is a PREDICT study that we are currently doing, which is running with the US Army. To make a long story short, in the US Army, all soldiers who are enrolled, they have basically clinical exam and they give blood every 2 years. And of course, among this huge population of recruits, some of them will get IBD, some of them will get diabetes, and so on and so forth. So it's a unique resource because you can have access to pre-diagnosis samples up to 6 years, 10 years before the first symptom. And this is what we have been doing with the US Army. So we have collected samples from 200 patients with Crohn's disease, UC and controls, and we have started by looking at antimicrobial antibodies and some proteomic markers at different points in time, at diagnosis, 2 years before, 4 years before, and 6 years before. And these, I think, are kind of amazing data. On the bottom, you can see the predictive performance of the serological markers. In the middle, the somalogic marker, which are proteins. And on the right-hand side, the combination. And as you can see, I'm not sure you can see the different curves, but basically we can, just with these antimicrobial antibodies and proteomic marker, predict the onset of Crohn's disease 5 years before the first symptom with an area under curve of approximately 0.8, which is the first step in basically predicting Crohn's disease. And I'm sure we'll be able to improve this data. Interestingly, on the top, you have the somalogic marker, which are the proteins in red on the left-hand side, which are basically present a long time before the first symptoms. And based on this protein, we can identify pathways that look activated in Crohn's disease, and all those pathways point to the innate immune system, complement pathway, and glycosylation, meaning that this is what is occurring very early in the course of Crohn's disease, long-term, up to 5 and 6 years before the first symptom. Strikingly, we are not able to predict ulcerative colitis at all using these tools. So this is a summary of what I believe will be the most exciting in the next year or 2 years. And stay tuned for something awesome. Thank you.